The only thing I can figure is that Benny's got to go, and he doesn't want to do it in front of a man of God, not even if it's into a bag. I say I'm going to ring for the nurse, but before I can, Father Curtis says, "Before you do, I wonder, Jack, if you would step out into the hall with me for a moment." Sure, then Benny can take care of business. So we step out into the hall, and Father Curtis says, "Jack, forgive me if I'm blunt, but the time may be short. I guess you know that your friend is departing this world." "Yes," I say, "but he's taking his time about it. Benny's always been cautious." "Well, that determination would be in God's hands. But I think before this happens, I think what he wants, Jack, is for you to tell him that you love him." I have no reply to this. "In my experience," he says, "words of affection at such a significant time can mean everything, as a comfort, reassurance. I'm sure you understand." "Sure. Look, Father, Benny knows how I feel about him. I've known Benny all my life." "Yes, I'm sure he does. I can see you're a very good friend. And that's why, you see, at this special critical time, with so much at stake, that's why I think he'd like to hear those words from your lips." Boy, I don't know. I know it would mean a lot to your friend, Jack, to Ben. You do love him, don't you? Hey, I'd do anything for that guy in there, and he knows it. I'd change places with him if I could, and he'd do the same for me. "Then you do this for him," the priest says, taking hold of my arm. "You give him this parting gift. Declare your love while you can. I think you will find great peace in doing this, for yourself as well as for your friend." So I went back into the room and over to the bed, and I said, "Benny?" He opened his eyes and looked at me, and Father Curtis, and then back at me. And I looked at Father Curtis, and he nodded, so I said, "Benny, buddy?" "I love you, Benny." Benny's eyes got wide, and he looked around, almost like he was going into shock, and then he sighed and closed his eyes and nodded his head. Father Curtis held up his Bible and waved his hand in the air and left. There were tears in his eyes. I sat down. Benny looked over at me, shook his head, and sighed again. I said, "You okay?" And he nodded. A nurse came in, and Benny started making those sounds again. "Is he uncomfortable?" she says. "I don't think so. He said he was okay. He was doing this a while ago. I asked him if he was all right, and he said he was. I don't tell her about that other stuff." She checks on Benny and says, "Just a minute." She leaves and comes back with a small tablet in her hand. On it are written things like hello, goodbye, bathroom, pain, hungry. "We use these with patients who can't verbalize," she says. "Just point at what you'd like, Mr. Tuttle." And Benny taps the tablet with a finger. "Oh," she says, "he wants to see the television." She turns it on and says, "Oh, that's right. They're playing baseball today, aren't they? Isn't it some big game?" Oh, brother, I forgot all about it. "Benny, man, what have I done?" "They're playing for the championship, aren't they?" she says. "The pennant, yeah." She says, "You know, my dad was a big baseball fan. He used to talk all the time about the last time they won, when he was a little boy. Enjoy the game, Mr. Tuttle." She goes and I say, "Benny, But I didn't have to say anything. Benny looked at me and waved his hand. Let me know it was okay. It was the 7th inning. Poor Benny, he just wanted to see that game. I forgot all about it. Turns out it was a great game. Stallings hit a 2-run homer in the 8th to tie it. Then they went ahead, but we came back with 2 in the bottom of the 12th to win 5-4. Humdinger of a ball game. And we won our first pennant in 53 years. I got a big kick out of watching it with Benny. It was a lot like old times. Benny died that night. I didn't know it till I came in the next day and they told me. His room was empty. They'd taken his name off the wall. When I saw that, I knew. But some of the nurses, they were very nice. The man of God was there, too, Father Curtis. He said, "I gave your friend extreme unction." Man, oh man. Isn't that when they clean you out? I didn't know religious guys did that. I said, "Geez, I didn't know they did that to you after you were gone." "Yes," he said, "we're allowed to do it if the time is reasonably close." I didn't know what to say to this guy, so I finally said, "Wow, well, I'm sure the family will appreciate it." And he said, "And I'm sure your being there for him yesterday made all the difference in the world for your friend." Yeah, well, I guess so, when I finally figured out what he wanted. He smiled and patted me on the shoulder, and he said, different as we all are, yet we hunger for the same simple things. Well, I can't argue with that. You haven't won a pennant in 53 years. You get mighty hungry. And I know that Benny is ready to take on that ostrich feather now.